10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Alex Gortney, and welcome to the Developer Pursuit Podcast. As always, I bring on Nick Queen. Today's podcast, we brought back Tiffany White, who is a front-end and slash back-end dev working with JavaScript. And we brought her back, so if you haven't listened to, heard her before, go check out, I don't remember exactly which episode it is, it's been a little while, so just kind of scroll through our feed, you'll find it out. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead and kick this off.
Episode 6.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So it's going to be on episode 6, so with that said, let's go ahead and kick this off. So Tiffany, first off, I want to kind of talk about your new host that you were talking to me about earlier before the show started. On your podcast.
Yeah, he's a guy by the name of Nicholas Lash. I met him on LinkedIn, and we kind of connected. You know how on LinkedIn it has people you may know, and I was looking at the time. I was looking for developers to connect with, and he popped up, and so I connected with him, and just recently he reached out to me wanting to collaborate on a podcast and a blog. So I said, I have a developer podcast that you may be able to contribute to. I've been wanting to get a co-host, sort of like the dynamic you've got going here. And he's a JavaScript developer. I'm not sure if he's a full stack, but he's about 26, and he's been working as a JavaScript developer for a year for some sort of financial institution in Illinois. So he's got a bachelor's degree in computer science, traditional, but he was going for his master's, and he decided that he wanted to take time and work on his own side projects. So he's written for my blog once, and he's got another post in Google Docs ready to go, and we'll be doing a podcast tomorrow evening. Yeah, that'll be our first podcast together, and I kind of want to get some guests on. I see you guys have guests, and I don't know where to find them. So
I can explain that. I can explain that here in a second. Yeah.
All right.
So go ahead and finish what you're saying.
So we're gonna have the first podcast with both of us tomorrow, and we'll put that up. But he's a nice guy. Seems to know his way around JavaScript, even though he has some issues putting together some mission-critical apps for his financial company, but he's doing all right. He's doing all right.
That's pretty cool that you were able to find someone though too, because I know you've been talking about trying to find somebody for a while, and then kind of like saying you wish you had partners like what me and Nick have with our partnership on the podcast as well. So. Congrats on finding that, and be able to kind of start growing your podcast out.
Yeah, I don't necessarily just, I listen to Brian Douglas's podcast. He does This Developing Story, and it's just him, and that's great because he's got a little bit of a following. That's great, but it's something that I want to grow beyond. It's nice to have yourself talking about yourself. For a little while, then you need to step it up and either add guests or get a co-host. And so I'm glad that Nick reached out to me because it was time.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I was going to say is, have you listened to the Developer on Fire podcast?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, because we have him coming on. I think like in a couple weeks. So that's gonna be a fun episode with him. I was actually on his show, and he's a really nice guy as well. But one thing I was going to say is you asked kind of just about finding guests as well, but I was going to say about him how he did his, as like you said, kind of starting off singular and then bringing up guests and stuff, but from what I've seen, he just started bringing on guests straightforward, but he's got a lot of background too in his own industry, in the industry he's in, doing JavaScript as well. He's actually working on... he's doing some contract work for GitHub. I don't exactly remember the details, but it was still pretty cool to get to talk to him and get some advice from him. I was going to say, when that comes out, you should check his podcast out in general too. He might be somebody you might want to bring on as a guest, which leads me to my next thing I was going to say for finding people to bring on guests. So really what I do is I go on Twitter and I find people that I think are interesting, or read their blogs, or whatever the case may be, and I do what I do with you. I just kind of reach out and say, hey, um, I'm doing this podcast for X thing, and describe kind of like what it is you're doing and what you talk about. Um, you kind of give them a brief time that you do the recording on, and you say, hey, if it's something you're interested in, um, kind of let me know, and you link them to your previous podcasts that you've done. Let them listen to it if they want to, and really just sit back and wait. And I'll do that for 4 or 5 people, or how many people I can find, and I'll just line them up for the next month.
Yeah, about yeah, that sounds interesting. And I did listen to his podcast because I saw on your blog that you were going to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you said you were going to be on his podcast, I decided to give it a listen. It's really good. He had on Dave Thomas not too long ago, the guy that was responsible for bringing, well, pretty much responsible for bringing Ruby to the West, because Ruby, as you know, was a Japanese language, or was originated in Japan years ago, and in the I don't know if it was the mid '90s.
I actually didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So Dave Thomas was an English guy. He was pretty much stationed in England, and he's been programming for 40 years, or 40 plus years, and he happened upon Ruby in some BBS, which is like the internet for back in the 90s, and he downloaded Ruby and propagated Ruby in the West.
Cool.
So it was interesting hearing him. He was on Code Newbie as well, Dave Thomas. So if you haven't heard that episode either on, what's the guy's name that podcast you're going to be on?
The one I was going to be on? I don't want to mispronounce his name. I keep forgetting, unfortunately. I know. I don't remember if it was Dave or Dan. I have so many people I have to remember. 1 second. Yeah, so his name is, Dave.
Yeah, so if you haven't checked out Dave Thomas on Dave's...
Dave. I think it's Dave Rail. I want to say it's R-A-E-L.
Yeah, Dave Rail or Roll. If you haven't checked out that podcast with Dave Thomas, check it out. It was pretty interesting. And he was on Code Newbie too, so if you haven't listened to that, check it out. I don't remember what episode he was on in Code Newbie, but it was a 2-part episode, so his name's Dave Thomas, so check that out.
Yeah, definitely look at that too. I know Dave also had on John Sonmez, and he also had on I can't remember his name now. He was another really popular JavaScript developer that he had on. It was pretty cool though that he is able to find these people. But one thing we discussed though was about finding guests is just even reaching out to Dave. I wasn't even sure Dave was just gonna even pay attention to who we even were just because of the people he brings on. Some of the really big people. So I mean, it's one of those things where just don't even be afraid to ask. Just ask. I mean, the worst they can do is tell you no.
True.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, it's just all about how you ask them. And the cool thing about it is I use the podcast, like I said several times, is once you use the podcast, then you have that extra connection that you can reach out to. And I think that's the coolest thing about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when are you said you guys are starting your next thing? So when are you going to start bringing guests on?
We'll probably just do a test run of both of us on a podcast, just so I can introduce him to whoever listens to my podcast, and then we'll probably bring them on the following week. So it'll be a weekly podcast. So I'm thinking probably not this week, probably the following week. I have to put some feelers out for other guests, but I haven't done that yet, so it's going to take a little bit. But
yeah. Now, do you record ahead? Like with us, this one's not going to come out today. This is going to come out. I'm not sure.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. I'm trying to think. We're only a week ahead. Yeah. So, so how do you do that with your show?
I'm not sure. What I was doing was when I was doing it solo, I was recording and then releasing, right? I would record, then edit, and then release it. But that's time consuming, and which is why one of the reasons I didn't become consistent with it was because it was just me, and then talking about my journey in development, and then having to record, edit, upload, and post just took a lot of time, and I don't have a lot of time to do that on a weekly basis. So having Nick on will kind of edge me or push me to do that. I guess this particular episode that we record tomorrow will go out next week because I just posted a episode. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. So it'll probably go out next week, and so we'll probably have be a week behind because that's just the way it happened to be right now with the way I was scheduling my podcast. So we'll be a week behind. So next week, the new episode with him and I will be out probably on Friday. So
Cool.
Look forward to listening to that one when it comes out. We'll definitely listen on that.
Yeah.
So another thing I have to ask, I'm just kind of curious, with like when you're looking for people for your blog and everything, like what is it you're looking for when they do that? Like asking people for? Are you only accepting like Nick? Or are you accepting other people to kind of come guest blog, or like what are you looking on that?
I'm open to people guest blogging on my blog. He's a regular contributor, but if someone wants to come on and guest blog, then I'd be happy to have them. It's I'm not sure. I would really rather have newer developers talk about their journey on my blog. But if some more experienced developer would want to write, which I don't know if that would happen, but if they would want to write an article, that'd be great. But anyone who wants to guest blog on my blog would be welcome to do so.
Yeah, well, the reason I was asking is because I would one of these days, like I said before we started the show, talking about coming on your podcast or your blog or something, because it's something I want to kind of talk about, kind of get my voice out there on other channels, is about talking about my experience so far of applying to jobs, and that struggle doing that, and pretty much what to expect, at least my experience of what to expect, because it seems like looking out there, you see all these like success stories, and it's just like that really is like a once in a blue moon thing that's gonna happen where you're just at the right place at the right time, type of thing, where it's like don't expect that to happen like right off the bat. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. So it's something I was looking to try to talk more about, because I know I talked about it a little bit on I think on Dave's show. So it's something I think is more interesting that I think would be good for other developers to hear that are in the same boat that we are, who are either learning or getting ready to look for a job.
Well, sure, you can come on and guest blog and talk about it on the podcast. I'd love to have you on. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I was going to ask is having you on mine actually too on my blog, because I'm kind of like running out of ideas of stuff to talk about. Yeah. So I'm meeting other developers. So if anybody's listening too, just hit me up on Twitter. And that will be in the show notes as well on my Twitter. But would you be actually, possibly wanting to do something like that sometime though? When you get time, that is. It'd be something I think would be cool to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. Another thing, Nick, we also want to talk about, like I was talking to Tiffany about too, is that video, JavaScript, the weird parts.
Oh, the course, yeah.
Yeah. So, Nick, you want to kind of jump in here and kind of talk about some of this stuff?
Sure. So, a lot of people here that do listen to the show know I've been struggling a little bit, mainly a lot with time. Basically, my job's going crazy and keeping kind of slowing me down. And the other side of that is Alex and I have talked a lot about here lately is that feeling of just following tutorials and really just it's almost like they show you, okay, type this and you type this and like and that's how you build, Twitter. It's like, well, okay, I have no idea what any of the parts are really doing, other than just a kind of a passing,
It's
this
kind of
is
like
going to make you do this.
yeah, it's kind of like you got the concept, but you don't really understand what's going on under the hood type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, I looked for courses and just, resources everywhere, and I happened across, I'm probably going to butcher the name. I think it's Anthony Alicia, I'm going to guess. A course he had on Udemy, and I probably butchered that too. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. Called JavaScript Understanding the Weird Parts. So, it was on sale, and it might still be on sale this week on Udemy. So grabbed it, and so far I've been really enjoying it. It is basically kind of like Alex said, it's a JavaScript under the hood kind of thing. So I know I'm a little bit further behind than Alex is, but I think so far I'm only 9 lectures in, and I'm really starting to understand the idea of the global environment, the global object, and this, which is mind blowing a little bit. Just understanding how it works, what it really is.
Personally,
Alex read some more about it last night because we had to talk about it. But so far, I can really recommend the course. It was on sale for $10 on Udemy. I don't know if it still is, but I mean, with Udemy, they have
definitely,
coupons all the time.
it's something that if you're really, really looking to understand what in the world you're doing, or you haven't found something that like really clicks for you, go look at it. I mean, like, my thing is, like, I used it, and my experience is a lot higher than Nick's at this point due to my time. I don't have time constraints to learn a lot of stuff.
You
But
pretty
the
much
thing
sit
is,
at
like,
home and do this. It's pretty much
yeah, it's like it's
that
my
is your
job at this.
point.
It's the job at this point. But like, what I was gonna say is like, Nick's learning the stuff that I should have been probably learning when I first started out. But the good thing is like the core under the hood stuff has really helped me out in a lot of ways. Like I was working on a live YouTube API player app using Socket.io and Electron.js, and I was running into a lot of bugs, and I was working with another developer, Daryl Dixon, or known as Peace Digital on Code Newbie and Twitter.
Who's actually been on the
Yeah,
show? So.
and he was been on the show as well. So he was helping me out earlier today, but we were talking about certain things, and at first, when I first met him, I kind of understood what he was talking about, of just different things of asynchronous JavaScript and when to use global scope, when not to use global scope, when to use certain things, and I had a decent understanding. And then like I watched that video and was just like, holy cat, it's just like there was so much I didn't really understand. Like now it's like all clear of how it's working and why I had to make that decision, rather than just saying, okay, I'm gonna make that decision just because the tutorial told me, like Nick was saying.
And I think you went through the same ones I have so far. So the first one comes up, and basically he's got the app.js. He's calling that from index.html, and he says, okay, just run it. And it's like, thinking, well, nothing's going to happen. I mean, there's no code in your JavaScript file. But from that, he showed that no matter what, the execution context, it's going to create
A window.
The window, and it's all this stuff that it just creates. You didn't do that.
That was something that it helped me out actually on my own code today, working on something with Electron. There was this bug. I don't know if it's really a bug or not, but like it handled jQuery differently, and so instead of sticking on the global window, it stuck it somewhere else. Well, unless I actually understood how to traverse the window like I do now, wouldn't have really understood what in the world Daryl was having me go look to do. So it was actually nice understanding that more in depth. So that's something, like I said, guys, just definitely go watch it. One thing I wanted to talk about too is kind of move forward is on my the last couple of days I had this job interview, phone screen interview, whatever the heck you want to call it. And I totally just flubbed all over the place the interview. And it was because I couldn't answer the core questions of under the hood stuff. So it's something you definitely need to go watch because it will help you in the long run. You know, even if you don't get asked it in a screening interview, it's still nice to know because it will help you out in the long run when making decisions in your code.
Well, let me ask you this, because you and Tiffany both are, as long as neither one of you dropped out of school, I don't know, but you both are doing classes for coding in college.
Yes.
So do they teach you the under the hood stuff, or do
No,
they
dude,
show
okay.
you how to do, let's just like
No.
type this and go?
No, they don't. Like it's like okay, so like one of my discussions was like I think someone was talking about like it tells you JavaScript's asynchronous. That's about it. They don't talk about the event stack. They don't talk about the event queue. You know, they don't talk about how the JavaScript compiler runs that. They essentially don't talk about any of that. It's like, all right, this is a JavaScript event. Great, and then the app is like, for instance, one of my programs was just really simple, as I was telling Tiffany earlier. I'm laughing at how sad it is, how I go from creating this basic stuff and then going back to creating complicated stuff that, you know, at my level. So it's kind of sad because these guys are going in this associate program, you know, yeah, it's a basic associate level class, but this is where you should be learning this under the hood stuff, and they're not teaching it, and it's sad. Like, I mean, I had one guy who came into class, somehow got stuck in the higher level JavaScript course, which I'm going to see it as a higher level, but he didn't even know what the heck the JavaScript event was. You know, like
I find that my professor, for my intro to programming class, she uses analogies to get us to understand the underlying concepts. So when it depends on how many people ask questions as well. So if people aren't asking questions about what is happening in the class, then my professor at least assumes that people know what's going on. But she does make a point in explaining the concepts.
Yeah, and I
find
think
that her analogies are really good. Like she got me to understand objects in classes, and just by using an analogy of teaching, I forget what it was, but she got me to understand it. And I find that I don't know how widespread that is amongst different schools, but my professor's pretty good.
Something I wanted to point out is I prefer, like, honestly now after going to school for the year, you know, when I go back for a bachelor's degree, more than likely, depending on if I have a job, which I'm more likely to have a job by then, by this coming year, is probably going to go to a actual university like you're doing.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. One is what you said, where people actually discuss in class. Like I went to ITT Tech for graphic design, where you had a discussion in class, even though there were still people that just screwed off, you still had that discussion about certain stuff. And then the other big thing about it is going to online versus what you're doing. You said you don't until December, right?
Right.
Where my Java class ended like, you know, an entire month ago. You know, yours is still going, or, you know, when we first start, has it been a month, 2 months?
Since the show she was on?
Yeah, when were you on? Because that's when you first talked about it, right?
She was on September 4th.
Yeah, that was just starting.
Okay, so yeah, then I ended so I ended up at about a month ago. So you're still going to go till December. So, I mean, you got September, October, November, December. You got like 4 more months of learning on top of another class that's going to build on top of that class. To our mind, it's all accelerated. So they don't have the time to sit there and teach you the stuff that's really important to be taught. And I find like, yeah, you can make that up by doing what I'm doing and learning on your own and, you know, networking with you and Nick and stuff to have friends that help you out and, you know, give you resources to help you learn. But personally, if I had a choice at this point after doing the experience I've had, I'd definitely go back to in class and sit there for 2 hours at a lecture over sitting here online trying to, you know, write discussion posts on stuff where no one shows up for a week. And I feel like also when you sit in class, the people there have a higher level of understanding of what the heck they're getting themselves into than online, because like my past like 3 development classes, these people get in there and it's just like they have no idea what they're doing even after they read it, and it's like they're shocked by the amount of work that it takes to understand this stuff. In other words, they didn't like really think ahead of time or care to actually research what it takes to learn programming before they went to college. Especially online where you're really just self-taught, if that makes any sense. I mean, you just have the resources given to you what to read.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to figure it out. Versus where when you're in class, you have an instructor that can hold your hand and, walk around the class and tell you what to do, or, what to fix, or, whatever the case may be, depending on the size of the college that is. But either way, you get the point. So that's something I was going to point out, because I know last time I said colleges are outdated. They do this, and this. Well, after kind of really thinking about it, after going to my last programming class that I'm on, it's honestly the way this school is set up. They expect you to go further in your knowledge, and also in the bachelor's degree, it could get harder.
Yeah,
So
probably.
That's kind of my thing on that. After kind of listening to you and and looking and just kind of analyzing what's been going on. So, but yeah, so past that though, after doing Java and everything, are you still going to want to do JavaScript? Like, how far are you with JavaScript at this point?
I'm just going towards Ajax right now. I'm learning about Ajax, understanding Ajax. I do a lot of reading outside of just learning tutorials. Mm-hmm. So I just read a few articles on asynchronous JavaScript, and whenever I see a term that I don't know, I Google it. And then I will save the article and read about that. So I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of reading. But on Treehouse, I'm at Ajax. I'm still on the front end web development track. And I'm looking to finish that tomorrow and start the full stack. I don't even know how many more. I don't know what they call them when they call the front end web development track, and then the sub. I don't know if they're called courses or what they call under that, but I want to finish that and then start the full stack.
So a tip when you go into the full stack and you've actually finished the complete full stack and you go into Learning Express, if you go that route, are you planning on going the mean stack or are you going LAMP? If you don't know what LAMP is, it's like PHP, SQL, and
no, I don't want to do that.
So if you're gonna, I was gonna say mean stack's what I'm doing, where it's MongoDB, Express, and Angular, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll probably go mean, but I also want to learn React. I was reading,
it's just another framework that's a part of. Yeah,
I was reading about React, and I want to learn that as well. And I also want to learn React Native.
What is React anyway? I've heard it all over Twitter. I just don't really.
It's a Facebook framework, and so gosh, I was reading an article about it. So React does not use things like two-way data binding, which is what you'll find in Angular 1, which Angular 2 does away with two-way data binding, and it does a sort of server-side rendering. That the other MVC frameworks don't do. Which makes, when you're building a React app, it makes it a little bit faster because of the server-side rendering that it does. And React Native is just like building native iOS and Android apps using JavaScript. So it's sort of like what was the Ruby framework used for
Rails?
No, it's Ruby Motion. I'm not sure. There's a way you can build mobile apps using Ruby, but I forget the name of the framework to do that.
Well, so React, from what I understood, it's usually just for like the user interfaces, right?
Right. So
the view.
Yes, the view. It's like Angular, using React and Angular are front end frameworks. So, yes, the view part of the MVC. So I wanted to learn that after I learn MeanStack. But I want to learn MeanStack first.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say once you get past all the stuff on Treehouse and you learn Express, when you go to learn MongoDB, um, at that point in time, obviously, let me know because I can get you. Do you have lynda.com?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Let me know when you get to that point because I'm gonna send you a video that Nick has as well. I think that I told him about that teaches you. You're gonna kind of the piece Mongo together to learn all the to piece it together into everything else because Treehouse unfortunately doesn't teach it yet for whatever reason. And then when you learn Angular, definitely come hit me up because I will pretty much have to either, unless you figure out by that point how to tie it in yourself, I'll have to show it to you because Daryl actually had to show it to me.
Okay.
Because honestly, for whatever reason, there's just nothing out there that really is that for one that's updated, and it's just kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Just how to do it. So when you get to that point, definitely I'll help you out to get it going and get you started so it makes sense. But when you go to learn Angular, I think Treehouse is actually redoing their own videos for that coming up here, I think in November. So by the time you get around to it, it'll probably be up on Treehouse. I learned mine through Code School. Again, unfortunately, it doesn't teach you how to put your own stuff in there. It's already like pre-made server-side code, so it kind of sucked. But as far as the core concepts, it was really nice to learn from.
Yeah.
But those are kind of the resources once you get to that point. You're gonna have a long way to go from when you get in the full stack. But yeah, I think you'll have fun learning it though.
Yeah.
So as far as your Java stuff goes, are you gonna pursue Java as well, or are you just gonna stick with do what I did and just say okay, I learned it, and then kind of just keep pushing forward, or?
I'm probably just gonna be a full stack web developer. I'm not interested in working with Java. I understand. I'm not interested in working with it. Now I know that a lot of the companies around here. I got recruited to work for a company. She didn't even read my
resume
profile, but she thought I had a bachelor's degree. But she said they were looking for a Java developer with a bachelor's degree, and I was like, I don't want. And a lot of companies around here require you to know Java, and.
Just depends, because certain ones use it for their back-end language and stuff like that. I mean, something like certain companies, like my old friend Ryan, when he got in his company I was talking to you about, he went in, was doing JavaScript, and then they transferred him over to working on Java and told him to learn Java, and then had him trained. It just depends, but what my plan is not to have to use Java unless they train me on how to use Java in their environment, and then I'll use it. But otherwise, as far as making desktop apps and software like that, forget it. It's too much of a pain. It's slow, and it takes forever to even set the stuff up. That's one thing that's being a pain about. That's one thing I don't like about Java. I mean, especially after figuring out how to use Electron. It took me one line of code to make Electron one line of code for me to be able to make on my index HTML file to make my website pop up on Electron, and then pretty much it just took and copy and pasted what was on there getting started, and it just pops up and it's done, and then I have a full-fledged desktop app. Yeah,
I do want to build desktop apps, but that's something I want to do, on the side. I really don't want that to be my career.
Yeah, I don't know. I foresee web really, really going toward web apps, like what we're building. Web application stuff, doing the full MeanStack or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
One thing I pointed out to my instructor because he was pointing out something about JavaScript to a student, and was talking about server-side languages and talking about people mainly using .NET and SQL, and I'm just really? Quit telling people that.
Yeah.
Don't make them think that .NET's the only thing out there.
Well, it's also
So like,
proprietary, so it's you
what?
know it's proprietary. I mean, it's tied into Microsoft, so kind of like
Yeah,
Salesforce or some of the other ones. Yeah, I think you have to pay to be able to also use it. I may be wrong on that, but I mean,
I
if
don't know
you look
about
at
paying to use it, and it's just a framework.
um, yeah, you might be right. Like I said, I'm not no, but I know it's tied into Microsoft, and I think it's just limited just for that. Whereas
But
JavaScript is everywhere. I mean,
but that's yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, from what I've heard, like recently, I mean, this year JavaScript is taking over like with a force. I mean, like I mean, yeah, there's still gonna be PHP. That's a given, just because from what I found, if I was a company and had to do contract like work, it's going to cost you more to host a Node.js server, considering you got to go through customized server hosting. It's not just like what we have with our hosting for our websites. Because you got to have the database hosting, and then you got to pay for something like Heroku to host the actual site. So it's kind of more expensive, but on the other hand, it's faster and it's a lot lighter of a thing to do because you're able to pick and choose your packages that come with it. So that's my thing on that. But I mean, like I said, but like you said, JavaScript's everywhere, and it just depends on your preference, I guess. But I just didn't. But I just pointed out to my instructor that there was Node.js and some other stuff coming out, and I'm just like, he didn't even think about talking about anything else. So just figured I'd point that out to other people that are new, so they don't just get pigeonholed into one thing just because they heard it from one person.
but also it's a little scary too that a professor at university isn't aware of that. I mean, especially someone that's
Well, I
teaching.
don't know if he's aware of it. I think that's just what he was pointing out.
Hmm.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, there's certain instructors that they'll point out certain stuff. But it was kind of stupid in my last class. I had my Java class. My instructor's job was actually a PHP developer, but he's teaching Java. So,
Hmm.
I mean, he was knowledgeable in what he was doing. So,
Sure, sure.
it
I,
just depends. I mean, I get your point if that's his intention, but
Well, no, it's not necessarily an intention. It's you want to try to keep up with the industry as a whole
current
and
times.
not. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Well,
it's like I don't know, like a history professor not knowing the most, that maybe specializes in, European history, modern European history, not being up on the latest, stuff on Hitler or what have you. And he's referring back to the stuff in the 60s. I mean, you should be able to keep up with that. I mean, that's just what I'm saying.
yeah, and again, I don't know if that's true with what he was saying, or if I misinterpreted, or he was just
Sure.
using it as an example. So, again, from what I interpreted, he was just stating that there's languages, server-side languages like .NET, but honestly, I don't know. I've heard stuff. I barely hear .NET. I mean, that'd be like him mentioning Cold Fusion is a back-end server-side language. If
Yeah.
you guys know that, I mean, Cold
Yeah.
Fusion's outdated and old and never used anymore.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna get into that new thing called Fortran, and
you're
leave you all behind.
gonna get
Pascal.
in what? Pascal. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
basically
gonna
the way
go.
to go.
I'm just gonna go code on DOS. I'm gonna be a DOS developer now.
10
Gonna code in C like basic or something, like just basic. That's like whatever that was, like
That
was on
was
Well,
the
hell.
DOS.
That was
I
hell.
yeah, I actually did basic a long, 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 long time
I'm
ago.
gonna code in the newest
Before you were
before I
even
was born.
born, I think, Alex. I was like 6 or
Please, I was
7.
born and you guys just never knew it, and I was just that awesome.
Mm.
I'm gonna code on the newest stuff, and it's gonna use punch cards.
My mom did that. My mom was a computer operator, and the programmers would program in these huge, like there's this huge room with all these huge mainframe computers, and my mom had to translate the code that the programmers programmed into the mainframe into a key punch
Yeah.
card.
Was that the picture you had on Twitter with you in a Commodore 64 or something?
No. That was a long time ago. That was like 1990, and by then the Commodore 128 was old, and it was my mom bought it secondhand. I was hoping for something else, but
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Hmm.
I didn't get
Yeah, I
it.
was
But
gonna say I
she did when I was little. She worked. She would have me. She would work nights, and she would
Uh-huh.
let me. She would bring me to her job, and I would keep
Yeah.
on a little key punch machine. But those
Oh, that's
mainframes were
cool.
huge. Those mainframes are huge and loud. Loud.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that. One time, our teacher, we had this like old God, I don't know what it was. It was like one of the old computers that still had like separate boards for IC chips to sit on,
Hmm.
and we took like these gigantic like floppy drives. They weren't even like the normal size, they were, like the older, like the older big ones, and like it was still running on DOS commands. And there was three buttons on there. I don't know what they did, but we thought we broke it when they kept because it was like once it's like turbo. I don't know if you guys even know what those did, but like it was pretty funny because we
The,
just kept like screwing with it. Like
the turbo button. Oh, you mean like on a tower?
yeah, it's like turbo or something. Like because like so me and my
We
friend were
actually
like
had computers that did that. And, I mean, I don't know. It
I don't know turbo when you're like a freshman in high school being stupid. It
yeah.
translated to this thing's going way too slow, so press it repeatedly and see what happens.
Yeah, I actually looked it up because I know I had several computers that had that, and I'm kind of curious now. It says it was
It was just there. It doesn't
it
even do
switched
anything.
from a
They just put it
normal
there.
full speed to or a reduced speed. So there's two different states. It was after the original 4.77 megahertz 8088 was sold.
Huh.
I don't even know what that is. It's a Pentium.
I don't know. I
It looks
remember
like
one
486
time
or
we
something.
found like this old like Apple like the Mac it was one of the first first ones that you can like carry around. They're like kind of like portable, but they're all in one type of thing. Where like the monitor and the tower's all in one.
Yeah,
Yeah, iMac.
like
Yeah,
one of those
yeah.
green ones, like the plastic green
No,
cardboard
not the
in the back.
plastic ones. No, it was like
Oh,
even
okay.
older than that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the '70s versions of them. Like,
Uh,
and then yeah, then we found like the plastic one, the plastic iMacs. Those were cool.
Mm.
But but yeah, yeah, we kept messing with those. Those were funny to mess with. One of these days, I want to take one and somehow find a way to like replace the stuff in it, like with new hardware, and like screw with people, like have it load the old stuff,
Mm. Yeah,
but
there's
so
some,
you can.
yeah, I've seen some stuff like that before. Um, I always enjoy people putting like video game systems in different boxes and such. So
The
there's
original Mac, play with the original Mac mouse that had just one button click.
oh, well, never
That would
understood that.
suck.
Yeah.
I hated that. I went into a Mac store once and I hated their mouse. Like I got so annoyed because I couldn't. I had to do something, and I went to like use their mouse. I clicked on it. I'm like, where the heck's the left click? And I was like, where's the scroll wheel? You have to like touch it. I'm like, this is so stupid.
Apple doesn't do mice well.
They don't do keyboards well either.
I like their
Like if my
keyboards. I like their
like my
keyboards, but I don't like their
really
mice.
like put it this way, my keyboard, I have a SteelSeries mechanical keyboard. Like if I drop my keyboard on that keyboard, it would shatter into pieces.
That's most keyboards though, especially if you got a Still series. I mean, you know.
Well, mine also has a giant metal plate in the middle of it, but
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of you can't really, compare the two necessarily.
just saying, I don't like it. It's dinky, and it's like if I can't
Yeah.
use my keyboard as a weapon against somebody, then it's not a keyboard.
What?
Then again, most keyboards are not weapons, but each their own.
Let's put it this way: if someone tried to break in my house, I'd go for my keyboard. It's the strongest thing ever.
You live in rural Oregon, you probably have a gun somewhere close by. I'd go for that first.
I don't have a gun.
No, then there goes my stereotype.
I'll throw. I'm not. Okay, I'm not a backwoods redneck.
I never
Why do you
said
think I
that.
want out? What?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Did you
grew up in
say?
West Virginia, so I understand.
Okay, no. West Virginia's worse.
No,
West
actually, we're
Virginia.
still close to stuff. So
Okay, West Virginia. They bury their dead in the front yard. It's creepy.
yeah, it's up on the hill. So
I live close to, Pittsburgh's close to West Virginia, and
Like I
there's
went out there with my grandma, and they buried there were graveyards in the front porch.
well, depends on what part. What part were you in?
I don't remember.
See, you're judging the whole state. I'm just judging that little sliver in the side. For you,
Okay,
'cause there is
am I
Portland.
wrong? Okay, am I still wrong? Are parts of Virginia like extremely racist?
It's West Virginia.
I mean,
And,
come on! Like I went up there
yeah,
and I
that's the
swear to
way
God,
it's going to be
people
in a lot
were
of
racist.
in many places.
It drove me nuts. Like,
Unfortunately, the south, more south you go, you're probably going to run into more and more racism. That's
well,
an
uh,
Pennsylvania is
unfortunate
pretty
thing.
racist.
Yeah,
is
I was
it?
gonna say.
Pennsylvania is pretty racist. It's it ranks up there in like the top 5 of the amount of hate groups that the state contains.
It's
Because
true.
I don't know. It was,
there's Pittsburgh and there's Philly, and then the rest of Pennsylvania is pretty in between Pittsburgh and Philly. The rest of Pennsylvania is pretty homogenous when it comes to the races that are there. It's not
But I'm gonna be
not as
honest.
diverse as you think.
There's parts of Baltimore that are racist.
it's
I mean,
Baltimore. I mean, like, look
Well,
what's
but,
been going on up there.
Baltimore is major city. I mean, just like Pittsburgh. There's parts of Pittsburgh that are racist.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
but it's what I'm talking about is in between Pittsburgh and Philly. Like
Oh well, yeah, that whole area. That's
they
like
call
the
it
snow belt and everything
Pennsyltucky
else.
they call it Pennsyltucky for a reason.
I've never heard it called Pennsylvania.
Yep, they call it Pennsyltucky.
Oh jeez, I just kind of stayed out of that whole area.
I went to Lewistown as a teenager,
hmm
and I was with my friend who was from Lewistown, and I had to go to the bathroom. It was a long ride, and I went into the library, and it was probably the creepiest experience I've faced as a black person. And they didn't speak to me, and I asked them where the bathroom was, and they pointed. And they gawked at me, and then it was
Wow.
there are no black people in Lewistown, none.
Really, my experience was
I've been to several different places in Pennsylvania
See-
where there were no blacks.
See, when I was up in West Virginia, my grandma, we went to a Walmart, and like literally it was the exact opposite situation with me. Like I walked in there and I was like, holy crap, these people look like they're gonna murder me. Like they were just rude as hell. And I think there was like maybe like one other white guy in the entire store, and it was stupid. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me, people? I'm like, what the hell did I ever do to you? Like, 'cause I was like 15, and I was just like, well, I know not to go on this side of town anymore. Like when I was going up there on vacation, it was just really
Mhm.
stupid. Like I was just like, really? Like what is these? I don't know. I think it's stupid that these people still have that mentality. Period. But
Yeah.
I guess it's just where you live. I mean, they grow up in that culture.
Yeah, homogenous neighborhoods, especially in one of the, I'm not exactly sure where Lewiston is, but West Virginia and stuff. A lot of them becoming isolated communities that
Mm-hmm.
that depended on coal or something else, and once it's gone, the community dries up and the diehards stay, and there's no real diversity that's introduced into them.
That's kind of like what's happening here in Pittsburgh. There are a lot of old steel people here. When the steel left, it left the area like where I live right now is in an old mill town, and it's
Mhm.
pretty desolate. It's not very appealing.
So what part of
And,
Pittsburgh do you live in? Because I'm kind of familiar, somewhat.
I live
with
in
it.
I live in Duquesne. I live on the outskirts.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of towns on the outskirts of Pittsburgh that used to be very hopping or prominent that used to do a
Inclusive,
lot of steel. There's a
including
lot of
since this will come out actually on Halloween. Just real quick to throw this in here, including the town where they filmed Night of the Living Dead. Continue.
yeah, yeah. So there's a
Sorry, I
whole
had to throw it in.
yeah they did film it. But there's a whole lot of old people here that remember the times when steel was big, and there's a lot of technology companies coming here. There are a lot of startups, and there's a lot of friction between the techies, I would say, and the old what they call yinzers or old steel people.
Oh,
Who
dude, I
don't
haven't
like
heard
tech.
Yinzers in forever. It's not
Well,
that they don't like tech. It's just that I think the problem
Well,
is
okay,
they don't
it's
call
like
this.
in my town. It's like in my town. It's nothing but freaking logging, right? And then and all these stupid my these dumb mom and pop shops that don't promote anything, but themselves, and they don't allow anything that's related to either tech or something that's like big business that's gonna help grow the town.
well,
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead,
and
Nick.
oh no, that's okay. I was just gonna say, the thing is, a lot of these communities, this from Pittsburgh, probably further out past Pittsburgh, all the way down. That's all now called the Rust Belt. It used to be the Steel Belt. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just that it's so hard to compete with, foreign steel. Plus, I mean, there's a move away from, that type of an industry. So they see it as a challenge. And I mean, I lived in Wheeling, which is part of that, with Wheeling, Pittsburgh Steel, and all, that was all there. And they did the same thing. We had some businesses coming in, and they just seemed like, well, no, that's not how this community's about. This community's about this. And they didn't want to hear anything else. And they would block businesses from coming in, and they still were when I left. I mean, and the county kept losing people. So it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's like one of the reasons why I want to get out of this town, but yeah. But yeah, well, before we kind of go on in a way off track than we have.
We can bring it back to, because that's the same thing with Baltimore. There's a lot of startups and stuff coming in, but there's a lot of, the different industries that were in Baltimore that I think though Baltimore seems to embrace more of that. And I think it's probably because since it's closer to DC and it's more part of the megalopolis and stuff that it's able to embrace things. I think that's one of the big things of Pittsburgh is that it is like one of the things I'm glad I never I not had to do or when I lived there or close to there was I hated going through those tunnels to try to get into town to the city. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're pretty
That
bad.
traffic. Oh. So.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. But the tech scene here is really growing.
Good.
And I was talking to someone who I met, who kind of reached out to me when she came across my portfolio, which has nothing in it because I haven't built anything yet. But she reached out to me and we met for coffee, and I told her that I'm going to continue to go for my bachelor's degree, and I thought about quitting at one point because I wasn't sure if I was going to continue to get the money that I need to continue. But she said that there are a lot of startups here that would hire me, if I did self-taught, the self-taught way.
Mm-hmm.
But she said you wouldn't make as much money off the bat doing that.
My biggest thing I was gonna say, I don't mean to cut you off, but I was gonna say is when you go to any job, whether it be a startup or not, personally, I don't expect to make a lot of money off the bat. Like I think that's like the biggest thing people expect is that they're gonna make like $100-something thousand a year as a junior level developer. Does that make sense?
I totally agree that you're not gonna make $100-something thousand a year as a junior level developer.
I mean, I get that there's a standard that you got to have, to make a certain amount of money if you're, like in Nick's situation, or you're in a situation like if you own a house, or, living in an apartment or wherever, or a family, you have certain stuff you got to be able to make a certain amount of money. But I think like certain new developers, they come in and think they're going to make like 50 to 60 an hour. And then they get like cut down to like 15 or 14 or whatever the case is, depending on where they're making. Like what you said with startups, they can't afford to pay you 20 an hour type of thing or more.
One of the things that my school tried to sell, like when we went to Wickstart, there was a thing called Wickstart, Women in Computer Science Start. One of the things they tried to sell you on in order for you to decide to take on CS as a degree was the salaries of recent graduates. The salaries of recent graduates was really good, but that doesn't. I think it depends on a lot of factors, not just.
Yep, that's what I was saying earlier about getting hired in general. Is it depends on a lot of factors, and it depends on how much they're willing to pay you when you get hired.
Exactly.
You can't go off what someone else is getting paid for because it's gonna be a totally different experience than you.
Exactly.
And, like the other thing is like when people go into this industry of programming, don't go off it because you're gonna make a bunch of money. Because if you do that, you're not going to like what you're doing because you won't have the patience to sit there and be self-taught or, go through college and grind out the work that it takes to build a portfolio. The only reason, that's why I'm able to sit here on a day-to-day basis learning what I'm doing is because I like doing it. Because even though I'm not getting paid to do it yet, that's the big thing. Like, yeah, if I didn't like it and I just kind of grinded through it, got a job and got paid, at first you're gonna be happy you're getting that that a certain amount of money, but eventually you're gonna get bored.
We are getting a lot of, at least I'm hearing, digitized. You're starting to sound like a robot. So.
I'm not sure. Am I cutting out now?
No, it just sounded like you were talking really slow, but no, it's still going into that. Yeah.
I don't know.
So.
But I don't know. Either way, I mean. But yeah, that just depends on stuff.
Yeah.
So, I'm just curious how much. I'm going to cut Tiffany off and stuff, but how much time do we have left? Like, what do we have? I know we've been talking for a while.
I'm not timing this. Nobody told me to time this. I mean, we've been going since it's probably over an hour.
Yeah, I was going to say we kind of.
I'm sorry. Was I supposed to time? And I'll write that note for next time.
I just want to start wrapping stuff up.
I'm just chatting with friends.
Yeah, I was going to say I just want to kind of start wrapping stuff up. Otherwise, we're going to go on in like a 3-hour podcast. So.
I mean, we talked about a lot of diverse things. Coding, social issues in the, in the racist areas of Pennsylvania and in West Virginia and other places. The downfall of steel. I mean, our show is very diverse.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing we haven't talked about is soup.
Yeah, one day we'll have to do that. So
Tiffany,
next week we can talk about oppression and power. What's that?
Tiffany, did you ever hear that joke?
No.
So one time when we brought on Sage, he mentioned our podcast name, and he said like one of these days that we gotta like trick somebody into like coming on our podcast and make them think that we're just gonna talk about soup the entire time.
Yeah.
Right. Just developers talking about soup. It was we're like, yeah, it'd be funny to do to somebody.
We tried that last week, and Jacob just went with it, and he's like, I like Progresso.
I know, right? We're like, dang.
Not gonna work.
We need someone that's gonna go, what the heck are you guys doing? Like,
yeah. But I would say it's probably time to wrap up.
Definitely.
We're over now, right?
You guys have anything else you guys want to put in real quick before we wrap up?
No.
Yeah, okay. But I'm just gonna continue doing what I'm doing. So
So Tiffany, do you have any
better?
Yeah. So Tiffany, do you have any goals coming up besides like finishing up the full stack and the front end web development going to full stack? Do you have any projects you're gonna want to start creating or?
Yeah, I kind of want to. I want to finish this address book that I've been working on.
Cool. So it's not in JavaScript or Java?
It's in JavaScript.
Cool.
I found the Google Contacts API, so I want to work that in there too.
Cool. Yeah, I just got done building like that, like I said, that contact list I talked about.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if you want, well, I don't know, because you're not gonna be back in yet, but I was gonna say if you ever kind of need an idea how I did mine, go check mine out on my GitHub. It might give you some idea how to do yours if you,
Yeah,
if you ever
sure.
get stuck. So, um, so yeah, Nick, you said you're just gonna continue on with your videos and stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I know you keep saying I need to get on projects. My biggest problem is I sit down to do a project and I don't understand why I'm doing certain things and stuff. It's probably because I've been in college for way too long. I just don't understand things. Plus, honestly, you talk to me, I'm like 9, 10 o'clock my time, and I'm like, oh, I'm just getting home. So I have no
Mhm.
time right now. But I am
Does
slowly moving ahead. And I think that's for those out there that are wanting to make us change because you're in a job that is very stressful, that is very much time consuming. I mean, I'm a salaried employee, therefore, I don't have hours. I finally I get to turn my phone off the day at 5 o'clock, which is great. So then I just stared into space for a while. So the important thing is to not give up. I think one of the things that kind of tethers me down to the community is actually doing this show. Talking to Alex, who I don't think is going to let me quit. Um, which is a good thing because it's there are times and it's like maybe I should just give up and just move suffer kind of thing. It's just doing something every day, even if it is just watching a video and trying to understand stuff. I think, which is why that the JavaScript, the weird parts, is a good suggestion for a lot of people. Is just getting that understanding. So I think if you have the understanding, and then when you sit down and start doing things, that it helps. Just a little bit at a time, even if it is 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes you didn't do before.
I just bought the course, by the way, JavaScript the
Oh,
Weird.
yeah.
no
So,
cool.
Mr. LSE, we do want our commission. Send it
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
We're gonna keep announcing in every podcast. So bring out your wallet.
we want our money.
No, and we want 10% per person that says it. So
Yeah. So no, it is a really good course. Though. I mean, we actually get nothing for it. But it is a good course, and I think it's one of the things we were talking about last night was he doesn't dress it up with like fancy words or anything like that. He just this is it. Here's the concept. That's all you need to know about it. But this is why this happens and moves on.
yeah,
The one I'm on right now is hoisting, and the other thing I like about it is he tells you to type this in, you run it, and then he explains why it's doing what it's doing. But you're also seeing it like in the console and stuff at the same time, why it's working, why it's not working, and what that means. It's really good. It's nice.
Good,
yeah,
good.
definitely. So I think you guys will both like that. Or obviously you're gonna like it, Tiffany. I know Nick's gonna
I'm
like it.
the
I
one that
like it.
introduced
So.
it to you. What is I liked it first.
I'm sorry. It's a
You are
habit.
diminishing me as a person.
You
Next
yes,
week
I am.
we are
I'm proud
talking
of it.
about oppression and power structures. I tell you. All right. Don't make me get all social worky.
I am the hierarchy of this
Mhm.
podcast.
Sure. Just because your name is A, starts with an A.
Exactly. Tiffany's still above you. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know.
I give Tiffany
Wait a
all the
second.
power.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just gonna. I don't care. And that's how
But
it
anyway,
happens in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
in the next episode, we talk about how Nick is going to try to create an uprising. but yeah.
Just remember what we were talking about last time with Big Nick. Big Nick or
yeah,
whatever.
Big Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna
But
turn
this
into
show
Big
lost
Nick.
it. Yeah.
But anyway, we need to move on. What I was gonna say
we've
is,
lost everything. So just close the show.
but anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna continue working on more projects. I gotta go find something to do now because I just finished up my other project. Yeah, I've been building a lot of projects. I gotta keep that going, and then I'm gonna continue probably take some time now to finish up those videos and keep putting my resume out there and hope I don't flub up my next phone screen so I can get through an interview. And hopefully sometime along the line you guys hear me talking about getting a job. So
Sounds
that's
good.
my goal. Other than that, my name is Alex Gortney.
Mine's Nick Queen.
And I'm Tiffany White.
And we didn't screw this up, and we will talk to you guys later.
All right.
Bye.